Fight week has wrapped up for Errol Spence Jr., Terence "Bud" Crawford. In this video, I'm going to cover Grand Arrival's final press conference and the final weigh-ins with the theme in mind: Bud Crawford, distracted, angry, emotional. This is your boy JG. This is the Punch Report. Let's go. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. This is your boy JG. This is the Punch Report. Please come and like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to be notified when all the content drops. Now, it just wrapped maybe an hour or so ago, so I'm a little bit late to the party. The weigh-in, ceremonial weigh-ins, they weighed in earlier this morning, had an opportunity to rehydrate. They both look great, kind of, sort of, and I'll get into that later in this video. But the first thing I kind of want to recap is the fight week for Errol Spence Jr. Terence "Bud" Crawford. Takes place tomorrow, Saturday, July 29th, T-Mobile Arena, live on pay-per-view. I think it's like $88, $84, something like that. Make sure you buy it. Don't stream it. Don't be broke. Don't be cheap. Get their fighters they do. I think this fight is worth it. Bud Crawford has concerned me a little bit. I want to start with the weight cut. Now, I did a video maybe 3 weeks ago, and there were some images that Bud Crawford put out on social media, and I stated that I feel like Bud Crawford had done the thing that Mikey should have done, which is kind of stay where his weight should be himself, get in shape, make weight, train hard, and show up and get on the scale. Right after that video, information started to leak out that maybe Bud Crawford was a little more yoked up and, you know, had stuck on some bulk in an effort to fortify himself against Errol Spence Jr. For me, in the images that he was putting on social media largely, and some of the workout footage that had come out, I had not seen that. I felt like Bud looked like Bud. Grand Arrivals comes, what is that, Tuesday, Wednesday? I'm not sure the day. And you have Bud Crawford arriving, hoodied up, and he looks like he's been through it. No, this was a Tuesday, yeah. So he looks like the weight cut is being hard on him. Very drawn in the face, low energy, really just trying to keep reserved. And I've heard various reasons or excuses. He's laser focused, he's locked in, whatever the case may be. What I would tell you is this: Bud Crawford had a hard weight cut. As a person who's had a very difficult and failed weight cut that resulted in me getting my ass whooped, I know what that looks and feels like when you've pushed it to the limit. Which leads me to say this: I was wrong. In my video that I did 3 weeks ago, I felt like like I said, he had done the things that he needed to do to make sure that he was himself, the best version of Bud Crawford going into this fight. This weight cut was hard on Bud Crawford. That's evidenced by how drawn his face is. I knew that he had gotten pretty big for the division because of the Sean Porter fight, because he looked kind of drawn in the weigh-in there too, but nothing like he looked this week. I'm nervous that Bud Crawford went the route of trying to put on additional muscle to prepare himself to fight a guy like Errol Spence Jr., where I don't know if that was the best course of action. Now, before I continue, I need to go ahead and put this out there. I made a prediction for this fight. I had Errol Spence Jr. walking Bud Crawford down, breaking him down, and eventually having Bud Crawford succumb to the pressure, take a knee after the 9th round because it's too much pressure, too much damage. It's not going to be corner stoppage. Even if he was getting brutalized after the 5th round, his corner's not stopping it. Bud Crawford's probably going to go out on his shield. That's what I went with. When I made that prediction, I made it with the assumption of Errol Spence Jr. being at his absolute best, Terence "Bud" Crawford being at his absolute best. I'm not saying that Bud Crawford's not going to be at his best, but what I am saying is I'm concerned about the perceived additional bulk. I'm concerned about how the weight cut went. And one thing that you can bank on when you fight Errol Spence Jr., if it goes a distance, he gets stronger throughout the fight. He is a big, strong guy. It doesn't matter if you like him, if you're rooting for him. If you think he's going to get knocked out, you have to contend with his size and physicality. And if Bud Crawford depleted himself or maybe overtrained or pushed it too hard with the additional weight and then coming back down the ladder, it could zap his gas tank. And I think he's had issues in the past where he kind of tapers off, but we know he will go Super Saiyan and turn up on a cat if he feels like that's necessary. Did it with Mean Machine, did it with Sean Porter, and he was successful there. The final press conference was pretty interesting to me from the perspective of, You're showing up and you haven't weighed in yet, so you already know for both Errol and Bud Crawford, they're going to be depleted. They're not going to be feeling the best. You can get pretty grumpy in those scenarios, so I can be forgiven from that perspective. I think Bud Crawford, his energy seemed withdrawn, possibly distracted, maybe a little emotional. There's a little back and forth argument between he and a member of the crowd that was there to observe the final press conference. And when the fight is this big and there's this much on the line, Bud Crawford can go out tomorrow and he can knock out Errol Spence Jr. That could be a thing that happens. But he will have to earn it. And so even to get to the point where he can put a good shot on Errol, he will have to walk through some sort of fire. If you're a Crawford fan, you should anticipate that, even in victory. If you are thinking about things outside of fighting Errol Spence Jr. and what it takes to become a unified champion at 147 pounds, that gives me concern for where you're at emotionally and mentally. Obviously, Derek James and Brian McIntyre, Bo Mac went back and forth, but I'm more focused on Errol's calm demeanor, which I've mentioned before, and I got flamed for that as a biased channel, and Bud Crawford being slightly more on edge and his fans being agitated. That's not a lie. Go to Twitter, go to any YouTube channel. Bud Crawford fans are very, very edgy. They mirror Bud Crawford's energy. And for a moment, he tries to play peacemaker, but ultimately, he reverts back to what he knows, which is trying to check people, being a beast, maybe a bully. And if you can't stand up to a guy like Bud Crawford, then you might get beat up or stomped out by his team or whatever. He reverts back to what he knows. Errol Spence Jr., there's another video coming, and it's going to be something along the lines of Errol Spence Jr. knows something that we don't. Now, that's all I'm going to say about it. Check that video. I'm dropping it up. Bud Crawford had a hard weight cut. That's not a good thing. The additional weight, he doesn't like Mikey look bad. Bud Crawford still looks good and sharp. He's definitely in shape. But one of the advantages is fluidity and athleticism. Does he eat into that with the additional weight? Because they did a weigh-in early in the AM. This is kind of ceremonial. He'll continue to get bigger as he rehydrates and gets fuel in his system. Will he be able to hold up against the pressure of Errol? That's a thing. If you're fighting Errol, you have to hold up to it. You can beat him, but at some point in time, you had to deal with it. That's a reality. That's not like, oh my God, Errol's so great. It's a reality. He's a pressure fighter. Going over to Errol Spence Jr., he's never looked better in a weigh. I don't know the last time he looked this good in a weigh-in. Pause, crazy. I know Bud looks good. But Errol Spence, coming off fat camps, lack of discipline, things of that nature, sometimes you can tell by his body and face, he really had to work to ensure that he was in tremendous shape and get on weight. He's never missed weight. That's never been an issue. And we know he has a crazy gas tank. For him to look as comfortable as he did on the scales today and looking a little like he himself is more fortified and ready for a battle, you know, I think I got to come up with a new nickname from Errol. It's like Errol Nutritionist. You know, he got the nutritionist. He got the fight in with Ugas, stayed on his weight, stayed with the nutritionist who flew down to Vegas, prepares all the meals, keeps track of everything, and he made weight, acclimated beautifully. And this is a guy who's telling you I'm too big for the division. He looked very comfortable making the weight. His body looks like he's ready for war. And I think already being the naturally bigger man, this has to be slightly concerning for the Crawford team. I'm not sure what the next course of action is other than to fight. I don't even know why I said that. However, is Terence Bud Crawford focused on the right things in the lead of the last 24 hours before it's time to make that ring walk? Having certain emotional outbursts during interviews, obviously during the final press conference, is this indicative of nervous energy? This is a massive fight. Let's not pretend and play games. This is a big fight. Errol Spence, this is his first opportunity at Undisputed, but as far as a big stage is concerned with massive crowds and super, legit shoulder programming and lead up, he's done this. Bud Crawford being trapped, well, not trapped because he picked to go back to ESPN Top Rank, was used to putting himself in a position where he didn't really promote. He went out there, fought his ass off, got victories, racked up knockouts and belts. Bob Arum made it no secret, I lose money on this guy. Is it possible that the legitimacy of the lead up to this fight, all the press obligations, weighed on Terence Bud Crawford as he pushed himself in camp to make weight, fortify his body for potential war, and prepare himself for a victory that is on the table. My hope is that they were thorough in their approach based on what we've seen from this lead-in, from the grand arrivals to the final press conference to the weigh-ins. I think Bud Crawford may have had missteps. He might go out there and win in a round. I don't know. But I do not think this is best case scenario for Bud Crawford. Based on what you guys observe yourselves, let me know in the comment section. Errol looks great right there. Bud looks great right there. Bud looks a little bigger. Looks a little more drawn than I'm used to. And the grand arrivals in the final press conference, he definitely looked like he was struggling to make the weight. Is the bulk going to be problematic? Let me know what you guys are thinking. This is your boy JG. This is the Punch Report. Check out this video. Errol looks like he knows something that we don't. We out.